So I tried out 10 fairly new sunscreens, one of which is a mineral sunscreen without a white cast. So I tried the latest from TirTir, Byoma. Beauty of Joseon has a new sunscreen that's available at Sephora, so we're gonna talk about that as well. And more, plus Belif has joined the sunscreen chat. But is it worth it? Let's find out. Now, as always, friends, timestamps are listed below. So if there's a particular sunscreen that you wanna, zero in on, you can use the timestamps to do that, but please watch the full video because there might be some context that you might miss, yada, yada, yada. So first up, we have the Beauty of Joseon Day Dew Sunscreen SPF 50. Now, there is something going on right now with Korean sunscreens, and I got feelings about it. They're mixed feelings, but I definitely have feelings and I have thoughts. So, this is a Korean sunscreen that has American filters. Basically, what I'm saying here is, this is a sunscreen made by a Korean company. They want to be able to sell inside US stores, and in order to do so, they have to abide by, the American rules. The American rules when it comes to sunscreens, is pretty much, we got this set of filters, and filters are what they put in the sunscreen to protect you from the sun. Now, we have these specific sunscreen filters that we have not added to since Danielle was in high school. I'm Danielle. But, if you want to sell sunscreens inside the US brick and mortar, you best to have these American filters that are approved by the US of A in your sunscreen. Now, I get it because brands want to make money. I don't think anybody makes a brand and they're like, I feel to make a little change, that's all. So I get it. Now, what has made Korean sunscreens in particular very exciting, especially for, this side of the internet where, we talk about sunscreen a little more than other people might. What made Korean sunscreens exciting is because they use new age filters. Basically, filters that can make a sunscreen more cosmetically elegant. It can make a sunscreen feel like you have nothing on. Some people experience that they could damn near wash their face with the sunscreen and not get eye sting. It's a lot of really amazing things that can be done with these newer filters. However, the FDA has been on the slow bop with approving new filters in the USA. So it's not to say that the sunscreens that we have available in the US are trash. There are a lot of amazing American sunscreens, but I just be like, why are you gonna call something a Korean sunscreen when it has American filters in it? Me, myself personally, I feel like it should be called a Korean American sunscreen versus a Korean sunscreen, but I digress. Anyway, let's talk about this one. So this is very lightweight. It is also very moisturizing. Now, I have oily skin, but as I get older, I'll be 44. I'm probably 44 already by the time you get to see this video. As I get a little older, the oiliness is starting to, kind of dwindle down a little bit by bit. So I do appreciate when a sunscreen is very moisturizing. Also for my lifestyle, I really appreciate when a sunscreen is very moisturizing because then that means I could skip my moisturizer and just, do this, one step instead of two, okay? Now it feels like there's nothing on, which I also appreciate. Like if a sunscreen can be moisturizing and also not feel heavy at the same time. Hallelujah. And I felt like it had like a natural dewy finish. It wasn't overly dewy where it's like, okay, this looks good now, but the second I step outside, I'm gonna look like a grease ball. And it wasn't like matte, where it's like, I can see every single line and dry patch in your skin. I will say though, that I did experience some eye sting. Now, the thing with eye sting can be so subjective, and it's really hard for me to break that down to people, especially since I'm someone who tends to influence people who normally wouldn't wear sunscreen to wear sunscreen, because there's no like specific reason why sunscreens burn your eyes. I personally have felt that sometimes when a sunscreen is particularly runny, and if I'm sweating or like a little oil breakthrough and then the sunscreen's kind of like, I don't want to say melting because it's not actually melting, but like the sunscreen mixes with my sweat and the sweat drips down and that gets into my eyes. I've noticed that can happen. So there are a couple of things that you can do because again, there's no like, I could have a sunscreen that doesn't irritate my eyes 9 out of 10 times, and then that one time it does and it's just like, ah. So here's a couple of things. The icing could be caused by one of the filters. It may not even be one of the filters at all. It could be one of the ingredients in the sunscreen, yada, yada. So what I tell people is either use a water resistant sunscreen because maybe that can kind of help with, give you a little bit more time with like the sweat and the oil, or, like if it's raining or something outside, that gives you a little bit more time. Also, what you can do is typically like sunscreen sticks, because of the texture of the formula, sometimes those are less likely to like like find its way into your eye. So maybe you put a regular sunscreen everywhere else, and then maybe you put a stick around the eye area. Some people might put a mineral sunscreen around the eye area, and then a chemical sunscreen everywhere else. If you have tips on what you do with about eye sting, let us know in the comments. But it's not even like I can say certain brands will do it and certain brands won't do it, because when I tried this, when I was testing it, it burned my eyes. But when I put it on for the demo, it didn't burn my eyes. So, and by the way, this is $18 for 1.69 fluid ounces or 50 ml. Would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know in the comments. And if you wanted to know my thoughts on the Korean version of this, I don't remember, but I've done a video on it and I'll link it below, or you can just kind of search video choice in the search button on my site. Which, by the way, I always use timestamps in my videos, especially these sunscreen videos. So if you want to go to a specific sunscreen or reference it back later on, there are timestamps always in these videos. But you can also, if you like, oh my God, have you tried blah, 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 blah sunscreen? All you have to do is go on my channel. There's a little magnifying glass. You type in the name of the sunscreen, and if I've reviewed it, the video will pop up, and then you can look in the description for timestamps and you can go right to it. Because a lot of times y'all be like, oh, have you tried da, 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 da? And I try to get to as many comments as I can, but I can't get to all of you. But nonetheless, let's move on. Next up, we have the Belif The True Cream Aqua Bomb SPF 45 Korean Moisturizer Face Sunscreen. This is $38 for 50 ml, 1.69 fluid ounces. Belif makes one of the most hydrating gel cream moisturizers that I've ever tried. It does have a lot of fragrance in it, so I'm not sure if since then they've come out with a fragrance-free version, but that Belif True Aqua Bomb, whatever it's called, mwah, love it. Love it, love it. If you don't love the fragrance, you probably love it less. And the price tag is a little up there, so you might be like, girl, bye. The price tag is pretty high on this one. $38 for this sunscreen is a lot, but I loved this sunscreen. Oh, it looks so beautiful on, but there are some caveats. So it's very lightweight. Like I just mentioned, it moisturizes really well. It does leave quite a dewy finish, which I thought looked absolutely beautiful, but this is absolutely not the right time of year for me to wear something like this in New York City summer. I could probably wear it on a day when I'm not wearing makeup. Even then, it'll still be like too much. Like standing in the subway for like 2 minutes, it'll just be like, ugh, like it'll just feel like, ugh. But I would definitely revisit this as it gets colder out, in the fall, late fall, winter. I might even be able to wear something like this in the dead of winter. In the dead of winter, my skin gets so dry, even though it's oily, it gets so dry because the winters here are cold and dry, well, on average. And this might be something that I could use then. Would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we have the Shiseido Urban Environment Oil-Free SPF 42 Face Sunscreen. Now, when I picked this up, I was actually looking for new sunscreens to try for oily skin. When I typed in oily skin sunscreens, this had popped up. What I didn't realize though is that this is a hybrid sunscreen. So a hybrid sunscreen is a sunscreen that has both mineral/inorganic and chemical/organic filters, as the active ingredient. So this does have zinc oxide in it. What was incredibly baffling about it, right? I've tried hybrid sunscreens here before on the channel. There is an audience for hybrid sunscreens because some people want the zinc. Although zinc can be a pain in the neck because it leaves such a ghastly white cast a lot of times, it also has healing properties. So sometimes people look for zinc to be in their sunscreens because maybe you're acne prone or, whatever. Maybe you just like to have zinc in your product. So, for those people, maybe they'll go for a hybrid sunscreen because it tends to blend a little bit better and look better on the skin, except for this one. Whoa. I have never had a hybrid sunscreen give me so much of a cast, and I think it's because this is oil-free. Typically, I feel like when you have zinc sunscreen or zinc and or titanium dioxide sunscreen, that the ones that blend a little bit better into the skin tend to use, like a bunch of oils and, whatever to get the sunscreen to blend on your skin and look a little bit better. When a sunscreen that contains zinc is oil-free, or it's made for oily skin, or it's, made to be a little bit more on the matte side, I find those can be a little tricky because whatever they're using to make it matte plus the zinc sometimes equals Casper and not even a friendly ghost. the unfriendly ghost, okay? So it does have a matte finish if that's what you're looking for. I would say if you're gonna put makeup on, that maybe this won't be as bad, but the cast is quite strong. Like I even had like cast sticking in my eyebrows. So if you're somebody with facial hair and you know, you always have a problem kind of blending sunscreens in, if I'm getting it in my brows, if you've got a thick mustache or a beard, like, you know, God help you. For people who wear makeup on top of their sunscreen, this might not be as bad. However, the cast is so strong that it might peek through your makeup, where it might give your makeup that probably matches your skin beautifully. It might give it like a bit of a grayish tone or make you look a little sickly because, you know, the white cast. So in that case, you might need to use something that's a little bit darker than your normal foundation color, or maybe you add a little bit more contour, or you add some bronzer to kind of counteract any grayness. And then this was expensive too. $38 for 30 ml, which is an ounce. Would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we have the Ranavat Brightening Mineral Sunscreen. This is an SPF 50 plus, and it is $65 dollars for 50 ml, 1.7 ounce. This 65 American dollars. I don't know if that's pre-tariff, post-tariff, or what. Probably pre-tariff, because I did get this before, but you know how people were kind of raising the prices when there was the thought of the tariffs in the end, and they was like, I don't know. Anyway, this is $65. Now, the packaging is gorgeous, right? And usually if you're gonna spend that much, you're probably thinking like, okay, a lot of that is probably in the packaging. If I had to guess, I would say that a lot of the money went into beautiful packaging. Now, I want to make the point, I think I've made this point before, but I'll make it again if you don't mind, that sometimes packaging really enhances your experience with a product. If the product is constantly leaking, or if the product needs to be dispensed a certain way and the packaging prevents it from being dispensed in that way, it could lead to a bad experience, you know? Now, the funny thing is, I'm saying that I bet that a lot of the money went into the packaging because it is quite beautiful. But when I open this up, it seems as if something wasn't properly twisted or closed or whatever, because the product had leaked into, you know, my Sephora order. So it's like, what y'all doing? It feels really nice though. The formula feels really nice, and it's super moisturizing, maybe a little too moisturizing. This is one of those mineral sunscreens where you're like, oh, it blends so nicely into the skin, and it's like, yeah, because there's so much, you know, the stuff that they put in to make it slip and feel good and blend into your skin pretty nicely. Now, you're still going to get a cast. Funny enough though, the cast on this is something that calls itself a mineral sunscreen, is way less than the cast on this Shiseido one, which was a hybrid sunscreen. Which also brings me to another point. I was like, oh, this is looking a little too good, right? Minus how shiny and slippery it feels, right? Because I feel like something like this, I feel like there's like a price bias kind of thing, where if something costs a lot of money, you might not use as much because you're like, oh my God, let me try to ration it out. So I feel like you won't use as much because it's pricey, but I also feel like not as much. I feel like you won't use enough because it's pricey. You gotta use enough sunscreen, 2 milligrams of sunscreen per centimeter square of skin. But I also feel like you might not use enough because it is so slippery and radiant and like it's doing all the things. But I was also like, this is a little too nice in how it's blending into the skin. And I remembered something that Lab Muffin has said in a couple of her mineral sunscreen videos, which if you've never checked out a Lab Muffin beauty science video, please do, because there's a lot of misinformation running rampant on the internet, and she's really good at debunking that and bringing the science into it and breaking it down in a way that us non-science folks can understand. Now, I remember her saying that a lot of mineral sunscreen, well, I don't know if she said a lot, but there are a number of mineral sunscreens that use an ingredient that is technically a chemical filter, which would make the sunscreen more of like, I guess, like a hybrid sunscreen, but they want to put mineral. Stop scratching my couch! But they want to put mineral in there because, you know, they trying to pander to you. Now, that is something I feel like is not right, because some of these companies, they fearmonger, they tell you, oh my God, chemical sunscreens are so bad for you. You need to use mineral sunscreens. But then the mineral sunscreens be 1.7 ounces is $65, and then it still has chemical filters in it. So it's like, so the chemical filter is called butyl octyl salicylate. I was like, this a little too good. Let me look it up, and sure enough, it was in the ingredient list. So that ingredient helps with the spreadability of the sunscreen. So I've tried probably a gazillion mineral sunscreens, and some of them it feels like a paste, and it's really hard to blend into the skin. Whereas some of them glide onto the skin a lot better. It feels really nice. And sometimes they're using this ingredient, butyl octyl salicylate, in order to increase that spreadability. So I don't know. People, they a little sneaky. And the crazy thing about the sneakiness is that you look at it and you're like, oh, it's a mineral sunscreen because it says it's a mineral sunscreen on the bottle. And unless you happen to catch a video from someone like a Lab Muffin Beauty Science, you're not gonna know that, oh, maybe there isn't a chemical filter in there that is helping with the spreadability. I'm not pointing that out to say that this is a bad ingredient. No. What I am pointing out is that people sneaky as hell and be trying to use marketing to persuade you from trying something that you think is bad. They want you to think it's bad, so then you go and buy their stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying that this brand does that. I actually have never heard of this brand before and have never had an interaction with them aside from me buying this at Sephora. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. And if you've tried this, would you try it? Good old chitty chatty blue. Next up, we have the TirTir Hydro UV Shield Sunscreen. This is an SPF 50+. This is also a Korean brand that is selling a sunscreen in the US in a brick and mortar store. So they have the American filters in it, right? There are places where you can get Korean sunscreens that have the filters that are allowed in outside of the US. Like I know a couple places in New York City, like if you go to K-Town in Manhattan, there are a lot of Korean stores here in Queens. Now, how long that's gonna be able to be allowed, I don't know. But you can also order from places like Yes Style, Stylevana, Olive Young. Like you could order from those places, which you get it from. They ship it over here. Anyway, so TirTir, they're very famous. I would say very TikTok famous for having that cushion foundation that I have reviewed here on the channel. They increased their shade range, but I still found it like, they need to go back to the lab a little bit more. But this sunscreen's actually pretty nice. So it's $17 for 1.69 fluid ounces. Now, one thing I will give the Korean American sunscreens is that they come with a very nice, cosmetically elegant experience for a very nice under $20 budget price, okay? This was 18 bucks and the TirTir is 17 bucks. Now, I'm sure there's somebody out there, oh my God, that's too much for a sunscreen. Bear in mind that this was $65, which is $5 from $70. Good Lord. But anyway, this moisturizes well, which I love because then I don't have to put a moisturizer on underneath. But, for some people, and maybe if you live in a certain climate or if it's a certain time of year, you might want to put your moisturizer on and then your sunscreen like this on top. You got to play around and see what works for you. It feels lightweight and it has a natural finish, which I love because, a dewy finish or a satin finish is nice, but when you have oily skin, there is a time and a place. But at any rate, would you try this? Let me know in the comments. By the way, everything that is mentioned in this video will be linked in the description box, and some of them might even pop up in the YouTube shopping. So check that out, but definitely check out the description because the full list will be there. So next up is the Olay Invisible Sunscreen SPF 35. But if there's one thing Olay is gonna do is they are going to come out with a new sunscreen, and it's gonna be a sunscreen that we're gonna love. And I hope please be a sunscreen that they keep on the shelves. Now, Olay has come out with some amazing sunscreens. One of their mineral sunscreens was one of the best mineral sunscreens I've ever tried. And that's coming from someone who doesn't even wear mineral sunscreens. I just review them. At any rate, they came out with their stab at an invisible sunscreen, which has been made popular by Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen. There's so many versions of invisible sunscreens out there, but this one's 1.7 ounces, 50 ml. It's $17.49 approximately. You could probably get it a little cheaper with a coupon. Some drugstores might have it a little bit more, but it's around $17.49. Now, this is the type of sunscreen where you're probably going to need to wear a moisturizer first, which in a way does make it a little bit more flexible, especially if you live someplace that has varying seasons. Like summer here, vastly different from winter here, okay? Like the moisturizer I use in the summer, I probably cannot use in the winter and vice versa. So what makes this a little bit flexible, if you're someone who you have to switch up your moisturizer throughout the year, you could switch up that moisturizer and still be able to wear this on top, depending. It depends on your lifestyle and your skin type and what moisturizer you're using. Yeah. This has the silkiest feel. Like, it feels so silky and it has a lot of slip to it, but it doesn't leave a greasy finish or feel on the skin. Like, it feels like it could, but it actually doesn't. I also find this to be a great primer for makeup, but technically any sunscreen could be a great primer for makeup depending on the type of makeup that you're gonna wear, the look that you're going for, the temperature, your climate, you know, what the weather doing, yada, yada, yada. But you always want to make sure that your skincare kind of matches all of those things, including your makeup, because if you're wearing very, very dewy skincare, but you want your makeup to last and look matte throughout the day, like, that doesn't go together. And if you want to look dewy, you're not going to wear a whole bunch of like mattifying skincare unless you have oily skin. You wear the mattifying skincare and then you put the dewy makeup on, and then that's the look you're going for. So it's a lot of variations and whatnot. But I do find this to be a good primer for makeup because it gives the skin a sort of like, there's like a slight blurring action. This is not going to give you real life blur filter, but it gives a slight blurring action. It slightly makes the pores look less apparent. It doesn't do anything for the pores. Like, you know, your pore size is going to stay. Your pore size doesn't change, but it can, you know, make the pores look a little bit better. So then when you go put makeup on, it's like, oh, it's not, this is a much nicer base. But is it a Supergoop dupe? Now on my skin, I don't really see or feel a difference between. I feel like the Unseen sunscreen might be slightly more matte, just like slightly more matte. Here's the texture of the Olay. So there's the Olay. Here's the Unseen sunscreen. So you can see that this one's a little bit more clear. This might have more mattifiers in it. I have to look at the ingredients. Yeah, I could feel a difference in the textures. I don't feel a difference in my skin, on my face, but I do feel a difference here. This one feels more emollient. Like, I'm not saying it's oily, but you could feel that slip more with the Olay than you can with the Unseen sunscreen. Now, it might not necessarily be that Olay was making this in an attempt to be an Unseen sunscreen dupe. There are a lot of invisible sunscreen products out there. Elf makes one, Black Girl Sunscreen makes one, Murad makes one. There's a bunch of brands that make these invisible sunscreens, and there gonna be some differences because, you know, brands put their own little twist on things. So I'd say it's pretty similar-ish. I can make a case for either one. Neither one really, like, it's not like they knock my socks off. They're both pretty great. I would have to say money-wise that the Olay one lends to, you know, being at a more attractive price point. You know, like, this one is slightly more matte than the Olay. If that makes a difference to you, then maybe that's the difference between which one you get. But you let me know in the comments which one you would choose. So let me know, would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So next up, this was also sent to me from the brand. This is the Cetaphil Sheer Mineral Sunscreen Stick SPF 50. Sunscreen sticks, I feel like they have a really good place in your routine. They're easy to carry around. They're easy to just whip out and reapply. Some of these sunscreen sticks can also be used to reapply over makeup, but I will say it is sheer. Now, sheer does not mean no cast, okay? Sheer is a difference between, remember when we were kids? Like, assuming you're around my age range, but when we were kids, we would wear stockings a lot, tights. So I, as a young girl who went to Catholic school, a lot of times I would wear these opaque, thick white tights, right? But there were also times, you know, as I got a little older, where maybe I wore some sheer white stockings instead of the thick white opaque tights. Now, both of them are white, and you're both gonna see them both, but the sheer is probably as less apparent than the opaque, and that's the same thing with here. Like, you're still gonna get a white cast, but it's sheer. Like, the cast with this is not as violent as the cast with, you know, some other mineral sunscreens, but you're still going to see it. Now, the thing with this one, it feels really balmy and it looks balmy on the skin. So it kind of looks like, it's not as balmy as if like you put some petroleum jelly on your face, but it does have that like feel to it where it's like you can feel that there's something on your skin. Like right now I have on my skincare and I have on layers of makeup, and as I'm talking to you, even though I have so much makeup on, it feels like there's nothing on my face. Whereas when I had this on, I was very aware and could feel that something was on my face, to the point where I was like, I wonder if I like fall asleep on the couch and then like the cat comes by like with his fur, like gets stuck my face because this thing is so balmy, but that's just me. Would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know in the comments. Next up from Sarah Creal, we have the Brilliant Repair Shield Illuminating Broad Spectrum Face Mineral Sunscreen Serum SPF 50. So this comes in 2 shades. I got this in the shade Vacation, which is the deeper shade. This is $64 US for 1 ounce or 30 grams of product. $64. I will say the packaging is quite beautiful, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the what you're paying for in here went into the packaging. It is really beautiful. Like if I was like super bougie when it came to sunscreens, I would freaking love this. And it dispenses really nicely. Like I could have this like this and it's not gonna immediately like pour out and get all over the place, which is amazing. This is a tinted formula. Now, I didn't get a white cast with this. I got a gold cast with this. Like, yo, I was looking like the Tin Man from The Wiz. That's how golden this thing was looking on me. Now, when I do the demo, I don't know that the camera is picking up how much of a gold cast that this thing had, but a gold cast is not better than a white cast. I feel like they're both equally offensive. Because it's not even the right kind of gold. Like if it was like a sheer, maybe like not a whole bunch of sparkle in it, but it was just like gold mixed with white. It wasn't pleasant. It looked like a lot. It does have quite of a radiant finish, so there's a time and a place. I would say that if you're lighter than me, that it might blend better into your skin. Like if you're like a tan kind of beigey color, beigey tan kind of color, this might look amazing on you, but like my complexion, and I would even say even because sometimes something can look off on me but look really beautiful on someone with a richer, more chocolatey complexion than mine. Like it could look even better on them than it does on me. I feel like this would not do that. I feel like this would just be like not great for darker skin tones. Like you could put makeup on top of it. It'd be a lot. Would you try this? Have you tried this? Let me know in the comments. It feels amazing though. It feels beautiful, but it's like, whew, gold cast. Next up, we have the Skin 1004, or is this Skin 1004? Like I see, I've reviewed this brand before, I've used their products before. I've seen reviews, but I can't remember if people were calling it Skin 1004 or Skin 1004. But I know y'all gonna tell me in the comments, cause y'all, oh Lord, y'all being, oh Lord. Anyway, this is the Madagascar Centella Hyalu-Cica Silky-Fit Sun Stick. So Cica, when you see that, and you probably see that a lot in Korean products, Cica is something that's going to help to calm and soothe the skin. So if you have sensitive skin or you just like, you know, I'm just mad zen, I want my skin to be zen too and calming or whatever, then maybe Cica is for you. So this is $14.30 for 30 grams. Again, with the sunscreen stick, they're so easy to carry around. This one has chemical/organic UV filters, but this is a Korean sunscreen, not a Korean American. This is straight up from the motherland, Korea sunscreen, right? You can use this year round, much like I was saying with the Olay Invisible Sunscreen. You might need to put a moisturizer on first, and you know, then you could, you know, use this year round. It has a natural finish, super easy to carry around. Like this little, you just slap that in your bag. You could even use it to reapply over your makeup. I don't like to use things like, you know, sunscreen sticks. You could even, technically you could reapply your sunscreen over your makeup with like a lotion or a cream sunscreen. I don't like to do that because it messes up my makeup, and you know, I probably wear more makeup than most of you probably would. What I like to do to reapply sunscreen over makeup, you know, you can check out in this video right here, which is gonna be linked. But anyway, what do you think of this? Would you try it? Have you tried it? Let me know in the comments, and it's linked in the description, and probably not in the YouTube shopping, but definitely in the description so you can get this. Now, next up, we have the Byoma Ultralight Face Fluid, and it comes in SPF 30 and SPF 50. These are really nice, okay? So these are 1.69 fluid ounces, 50 ml. Both of them are $19.99. You might, you know, I picked these up at Ulta. I think they might also sell them at Target, and I can't remember where else, but definitely Ulta. I bought this at Ulta. You know, Ulta, every now and again, you get a little coupon, get a couple dollars off, or, you know, you use your points or whatever, and you can get it for a little cheaper. But I really like these. They're very lightweight, but really moisturizing. So I didn't need to use a moisturizer on underneath this. They felt really, really good. And they gave my skin a nice dewy, like I would say like medium dewy finish, because like too dewy can be, you know, a lot. I would say like a medium dewy where it's like, oh my God, like, wow, she looks so healthy when she put that sunscreen on kind of look. Now, while I did find it to be really moisturizing, I do see where maybe in the deep of winter where I might need a moisturizer underneath, or I might need a little bit more. But I think this is good in warmer weather, the fall, early to mid fall. Like late fall when it's starting to get into winter might not be enough for me. I could wear this in the summertime. You know, obviously this, I don't remember if I said spring. The only thing is I honestly could not feel a difference or tell a difference between the 30 and the 50. There could be a difference in the ingredients. Yeah, there is gonna be a difference in the ingredients for the 50, you know, in the 50 probably. But typically when you have the same sunscreen, rather from like the same brand, but one's a higher SPF, sometimes the higher SPF makes the sunscreen feel a little greasier. That wasn't the case here, because like maybe the 50 had touch more radiance in the finish, but even then, by the end of the day, I really could not tell a difference between the two. Like, could you, if you've tried both? Were you able to feel the difference? Now, if I had to choose one or the other, you know, obviously I'll go with the 50 over the 30, but you know, there may be incidents where someone's lifestyle calls for the 30 versus the 50, because sometimes, I don't know, there are brands that still make SPF 15, and I think they make them for people with like really sensitive skin. I don't understand that, because I kind of feel like if your skin is that sensitive, don't you need a little bit more SPF protection? But I don't know everything. But y'all let me know what y'all think of the Byoma. I really like these. Again, me personally, I would pick the 50 over the 30 just because, you know, the 50 is gonna give me some more coverage, but you let me know your thoughts. Now, by the way, when I say that the 50 is gonna give you more coverage than the 30, there's a lot of nuance in that. It's not that the 50 is 20 degrees higher SPF than the 30. Nah, it don't work that way. It's actually more of a smaller percentage point, but even that smaller percentage point difference in the 30 versus the 50 can mean a difference in terms of, you know, especially if you're hyperpigmentation prone or you're very sensitive to the sun. But it could also work in the other way, like if you're very sensitive to, you know, certain ingredients and things like that. So now, a majority of these were chemical/organic sunscreens, except for where I specifically said that they were mineral or a hybrid. But in case you are someone who is looking for more mineral sunscreens and you're like, yeah, I wish you would show more mineral sunscreens, like you are in the right place, because there are so many on this channel, including this one right here. Click on it and I'll see you there. And I'm gonna link also in the description my blog post where I keep a running tally of the best mineral sunscreens I've tried ever. So check that out, and I'll see you later.